Welcome to World News TG, your trusted source for international news with speed, depth, and neutrality. We bring you a comprehensive view of the world, from wars and politics to economics and shifting global power dynamics. If you found today's report helpful, don't forget to hit the like button, share the video, and subscribe to World News TG for the latest updates from global hotspots. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a critical story that matters to you and the world.
Here is the content of today's news. Overview of the Israel-Iran conflict from June 15 to 17, 2025. Russia-Ukraine conflict from June 15 to 17, 2025. Escalation and mixed signals.
Overview of the Israel-Iran conflict from June 15 to 17, 2025. Background. Since June 13, Israel has launched a large-scale airstrike campaign targeting Iran's military, nuclear, and energy infrastructure. However, the conflict peaked between June 15 and 17, when both sides retaliated continuously, pushing the Middle East into a state of high alert with looming risks of a regional war. June 15, escalation begins. Iran responded fiercely. At dawn, a wave of ballistic missiles and drones struck Israel, targeting cities like Bat Yam, Rehovot, Tel Aviv, and Jerusalem. At least 11 people were killed, including children. Over 200 were injured, and 35 reported missing. A scientific research institute in Rehovot was hit, causing significant damage. Air raid sirens blared across the country as civilians sought shelter in bunkers. Several missiles struck residential areas, sparking panic and inflicting both human and infrastructural losses. Israel quickly retaliated with precise airstrikes using stealth aircraft and drones, targeting Iranian military and air defense installations. In Tehran, radar stations, missile systems, and key bases were systematically destroyed, dealing heavy losses to Iran. June 16, intensification. Israel expanded its operations, striking critical sites like the Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Intelligence, fuel stations, and oil refineries in Tehran and Bushehr. Multiple large explosions were reported near civilian neighborhoods. Casualties in Iran rose rapidly. Over 224 people were killed, including civilians, soldiers, and scientists. More than 1,000 were wounded. Major powers such as Russia and China issued urgent warnings, calling for restraint. Some G7 nations echoed similar concerns, urging de-escalation due to fears of a broader regional conflict. Iran urged mass evacuation of its capital. Hundreds of thousands fled Tehran, causing massive traffic jams. Panic buying at shops and gas stations led to domestic chaos and security breakdowns. June 17, air superiority and strategic blows. Israel claimed full control of Iranian airspace. Overnight airstrikes targeted command centers and strategic munitions depots, effectively paralyzing Iran's air defense. While the U.S. hasn't directly joined the fighting, it is showing deeper involvement. The current U.S. administration, influenced by the former president, issued a stern warning demanding Iran's unconditional surrender and stated that no military options are off the table. The global economy immediately reacted. Oil prices surged amid fears of a Hormuz Strait blockade, then slightly dropped in response to signs of U.S. intervention. Global stock markets tumbled due to war jitters. On the same day, Israel confirmed it had killed a high-ranking commander of Iran's Revolutionary Guard. The blow shook Iran's military command, causing temporary loss of control in several regions. Iran's death toll surpassed 450, most of them civilians. Strategic analysis. Israel is employing a hybrid warfare strategy, not only relying on advanced air power but also mobilizing intelligence, drones, and special forces operating deep inside Iran. The combination of precision attacks and internal sabotage is making it difficult for Iran to mount an effective counterstrike. Despite heavy losses, Iran has demonstrated a strong retaliatory capability. Its missile and drone attacks are designed to inflict psychological pressure, targeting Israeli civilians and infrastructure. Although many were intercepted by Israel's defense systems, diplomatically, no signs of de-escalation are evident. The U.S. is adopting a hardline stance, while Western nations call for peace but offer no concrete solutions. The UN has issued humanitarian appeals but lacks decisive action. The global economy is also rattled. A closure of the Strait of Hormuz would severely disrupt oil transport routes, impacting prices and supply chains worldwide. Humanitarian consequences. After 6 days of conflict, more than 500 people have died, and thousands are injured. Severe shortages of medicine, food, and clean water have emerged in both countries. Hospitals are overwhelmed, and power and communication outages are widespread. Iran's infrastructure is devastated. Power plants, water stations, schools, and administrative buildings are out of service. Widespread evacuations have pushed local authorities to the brink of collapse. In Israel, despite effective defenses, Iranian strikes have still damaged several residential areas. Thousands have evacuated from regions near Gaza and the northern border. Outlook and implications: there are no signs of an imminent ceasefire. Israel holds a technological and tactical advantage, while Iran shows no sign of backing down. Without immediate negotiations, the conflict could spiral into a prolonged and uncontrollable war. The risk of regional escalation is significant. Armed groups in Lebanon and Yemen are reportedly preparing to intervene. If they do, a full-scale, Middle East war could become reality. Global markets are watching closely. Major oil importers like China, India, Japan, and the EU are preparing emergency response plans in case of supply disruptions. The UN, humanitarian organizations, and major powers must intervene more decisively. A mediated ceasefire, even temporary, could be the first step toward saving lives and reducing suffering. Conclusion: the three-day escalation from June 15 to 17 shows the Israel-Iran conflict has entered an extremely dangerous phase. This is no longer a bilateral conflict, it's a test of global security frameworks, the resolve of major powers, and the ability of the international community to respond. Every move from now on will shape the future of the Middle East for years to come.
Russia-Ukraine conflict from June 15 to 17, 2025. Escalation and mixed signals. Background and unfolding events. On June 15, Russia launched airstrikes on the Kremenchuk oil refinery in Poltava province, a critical logistics hub for Ukraine. Moscow claims the attack severely disrupted fuel supplies for Ukraine's military in Donbass. The same day, Russia announced control over the village of Malinivka in Donetsk and reported advances near Sumy. In response, Ukraine says it recaptured the village of Andrevka and reinforced defenses around Sumy. A notable humanitarian incident was Russia returning around 1,200 Ukrainian soldier bodies, bringing the total returns since early June to nearly 4,800. Following a mutual agreement, this rare humanitarian gesture offered a fleeting sign of de-escalation amid fierce conflict. On June 16, Russia intensified its campaign by deploying ballistic missiles and drones against Ukrainian military command centers in Donetsk. Simultaneously, Ukraine launched a powerful drone strike on a UAV production facility in Russia's Tatarstan, killing one person and injuring more than 10, demonstrating Ukraine's ability to strike Russian territory. Battlefronts in Kursk, Kharkiv, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson remained tense. Most strikes from both sides focused more on attrition than achieving a decisive strategic advantage. In the early hours of June 17, Russia carried out its largest airstrike operation of the year on Kyiv. According to Ukrainian officials, Moscow used over 440 drones and 32 missiles, including cruise and ballistic types. The relentless assault left at least 16 dead and nearly 150 injured, including a 62-year-old American citizen. Residential buildings in the Solomiansky district were heavily damaged, alongside other civilian infrastructure like office buildings and logistics hubs. On the same day, Russia also bombed the port city of Odessa, killing 2 people and damaging public facilities. Moscow claimed to have destroyed a major Ukrainian command center in Donetsk. However, control in other key regions like Kherson and Zaporizhia remains largely unchanged. Military tactics analysis. Over these 3 days, Russia clearly employed a strategy of preemptive strikes, using missiles and drones to apply psychological pressure, weaken air defenses, and disrupt Ukraine's command capabilities. Targeting included not only military infrastructure, but also urban centers, suggesting Russia aims to force Kyiv to concede through military coercion. Ukraine's response involved deep strikes into Russian territory, targeting symbolic sites, such as UAV manufacturing plants. This served as a warning to Moscow that Ukraine can reach beyond its borders. On the ground, both sides remain locked in a stalemate. Russia is probing multiple fronts like Donetsk and Luhansk, but advances are slow and meet tough resistance. This phase could be described as a dynamic stalemate, no clear victor, but heavy losses on both sides. Diplomatic and political context. On June 15, Russian President Vladimir Putin expressed willingness to resume negotiations after June 22. Once prisoner and body exchanges were complete, Ukraine remains skeptical and insists that peace talks must include firm Western-backed guarantees on territory. At the same time, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky attended the G7 summit in Canada to lobby for additional aid. The UK and Canada pledged continued military support, But the absence and hesitation of the U.S., especially after President Trump departed early, raised concerns about future American aid. The European Union, particularly the Weimar Plus grouping, France, Germany, Poland, Italy, and Spain, condemned attacks on civilians and pledged not to resume Russian gas imports after the war, adding economic pressure on Moscow, humanitarian impact, and social effects. In just 3 days, over 20 civilians have died. Hundreds have been injured, and many neighborhoods in Kyiv, Odessa, and Kherson have been severely damaged. Numerous families have been displaced and now live in temporary shelters. Ukraine's essential infrastructure, power, water, healthcare, and transport is at risk of collapsing under sustained bombardment. Meanwhile, the continued exchange of bodies and prisoners shows a fragile channel of humanitarian communication. Yet these gestures cannot mask the overall escalation and expansion of the conflict. Assessment and outlook. The Russia-Ukraine conflict from June 15 to 17, 2025, shows no signs of de-escalation. Russia has stepped up attacks on urban centers and military command hubs, while Ukraine has responded with deep strikes into Russian territory. Prospects for diplomacy remain bleak, especially as the U.S. appears to be stepping back from long-term support. At the same time, Europe is divided between those committed to aid and others, wary of an extended war's impact on regional security and economies. Without a strong diplomatic initiative or a game-changing military breakthrough from either side, the conflict could degenerate into a prolonged war of attrition, inflicting severe casualties on both nations and threatening regional stability.
Thanks for watching. See you in the next edition of World News TG, connecting you to the world with facts, insight, and clarity.